All right, my friends, welcome. It is once again a kind of a stream. It is something we watch when, I don't know, to fall asleep, I guess, when we're stoned. It's something it's something that fills some gap in time that nothing else could fill, but like for no good reason, I guess. It's kind of like sitting at the BMV and there's like the hottest girl at the BMV or something. Um, but it's not something you would engage with otherwise. Like there is some sort of a special gap in time in your life that makes this stream worth it. And today, Brian and I were going to put on a carnival of merriment and philosophy and just different jokes and zingers and an embrace of tenderness, an embrace of the human spirit. So before we begin, I'd actually like to notice that I have removed all of my previous streams from my channel. And that doesn't have anything to do with the felony Mr. Robbins recently acquired, but it has more to do with it
What
has more
happened?
to do with the fact that like I don't spend as much time on the streams as much as I do on my videos. And if somebody is new on the channel, there's like a stream on which I maybe spent like 2 hours of preparation or something, just thinking of the topics. And then there's a video on which, that's 2 hours on which I've spent probably like 50 hours or more. And so like having one alternate with the other in the history of my channel doesn't make sense. But I did put them in a what's that called, in a fucking list, in a playlist where you can find them. I mean, they are enlisted, so you'll be able to find all of them there. So that's that. So Mr. Robbins couldn't make it today. He told me his work. He went to watch the UFC at a bar. And so Mr. Robbins exclusively goes to racist bars because of his unending cosplay, where he pretends to be a working man, and not just any working man, but like a scummy one. So that's what he goes. He does. He goes to these bars and talks to nobody. And here he's probably like throwing like some darts at a picture of Barack Obama with a bunch of like old dames with missing teeth, wearing Confederate flag tank tops. So this is what Mr. Robbins is up to. And then Ryan was going to join the stream because he's on Tinder and so am I, and we were going to discuss it, but he has internet issues. Perhaps he lives in Kosovo in the early 2000s and broadcasts from back in time. But very happy to have Brian with us. Really helped me out at the last moment. Yes, very, very appreciative of that. Um,
Of course,
what
I'm
is
happy to be here.
what is new in your life?
Oh, no, work, new possibilities opening up. It's we're nearing the equinox. The equinox is traditionally a time of change for me, and it seems as though some things are going to change soon. Going to stop scraping by, start prospering. You know,
Excellent, excellent. That sounds
as
fucking
we're all
fantastic.
entitled. Yeah, yeah. I didn't tell you about that. It's fine.
Yeah, fucking a. Um, we were
Started
talking
fucking
with Brian.
vaping because of you.
Yeah.
Started
Well, it
fucking.
is
I
the
started.
life-saving technology, as we say. Not so much procreation promoting, but relative to the worst habit you could have, it is life-saving.
It's true.
All right. So, yeah, Brian, could you ask me about my mental health issues and to mope around
Sure.
about my life?
How have things been going with everything upstairs?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I usually don't like to bring this up or burden my audience with it, but now
Sure,
that you,
of course.
yeah, raised the topic. Well, actually, for the past couple of weeks, I was enjoying a very sweet hypomania, and this was one of the best highs I had. Basically, it involved pacing around in this room, listening to like different Batman soundtracks, and just really losing myself in fantasies and different worlds. It was like some sort of a Disney movie where the princess runs through a gigantic palace with different doors, with different magical creatures and beasts, all of whom are friendly. Just a sense of discovery and a sense of like fresh wind in your face, just going on for hours and hours. And specifically, I've been reflecting or thinking about this show that was formulating in my mind, a kind of a long-term drama that would appear like on HBO or something. And this was actually had the foundation in my manic delusion about starting a Buddhist society, but in this case, it was fictional, and it was built around this Texan, kind of a stereotypical oilman who discovered Buddhism after marrying a Tibetan woman and became like a Buddhist fundamentalist in a Southern Baptist vein. And his old Lama is dying, and he has this idea of almost building like a Buddhist empire, a Buddhist um, well, what I was thinking about actually, like a series of Buddhist settlements to preserve the Dharma after the horrors that happened in Tibet and before that. And he asks his Lama for permission, but they don't communicate in the same language. And so when the Lama hears it in English, he thinks that he's talking about like expanding the Dharma Center. So he says, like, there we could have a garden, and there maybe a little guest house and stuff like that, and there a new entrance gate, etc. And this dude like thinks that he has really received this blessing from the Lama. And then when the Lama passes away, he initiates this project, which in this fictional universe becomes successful. There are many storylines in there that I can't go into, but I mean, it's so I basically have the structure of these numerous seasons of progression of this, and it actually becomes successful. And they, toward the last seasons, they have 50,000 people spread out in these different communities, and it's basically a question of, on the one hand, you have this pure innocence of meaning, and you have people who are really deriving a lot from these communities. On the other hand, you have these people on top who are also well meaning, but they're kind of fundamentalists. And because of certain events, they have to make some difficult choices, and immoral choices. And so there is a young woman who succeeded him, and she executes these choices while still being innocent. So unlike like in The Godfather, where he kind of died inside, she hasn't died inside. She has maintained her innocence in her spunk, in her idealism, and yet she basically killed people, a number of people to, from her point of view, keep the community going instead of it being destroyed from the inside. So that's the overall arc, but there's so much more to this, Brian, so much more. And I was just consumed. I laughed to myself about the jokes emerging spontaneously with these characters in my mind. I almost cried on a couple of occasions because of what would happen with these characters, and it went on for a couple of weeks, and it was just like a beautiful time. It's one of these periods where like it pays to be bipolar.
That sounds very intense. So like you would sort of simulate the show in terms of the unfolding plot and storylines, and then you would feel sort of the sentiments of the progression in the characters' lives, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are many different characters, and some of it is supernatural. Like one of them has a relationship with a naga, which is a serpent human combination that from Indian mythology that can take human form. And their relationship is always unequal because she's I mean, she's more powerful than him. So they have a playful kind of a relationship, but at the end of it, he has to choose as to whether to join her in her underwater kingdom. But there's also a possibility that she's just not that attracted to him and just wants to suffocate him in there so that nobody else can have him, while she herself doesn't really view him as, it's a kind of like that friendship between men and women, but in this case potentially taking a sinister course, but you never find out the outcome. I mean, it sounds kind of silly here, but it means a lot to me.
Well, I mean, what you're doing is basically writing. You're writing. I mean, I don't know if you wrote anything down, but the incubation process and coming up with and characters and all that stuff is totally part of the process. I'm a writer, so I have feelings invested in all of my characters. I have a character die in the most recent manuscript that I wrote, and I, upon like the final read through of that chapter, I did cry for the character who died. And so,
Yeah, that makes total sense.
For a couple, I mean, like I've worked on manuscripts for years at a time, and when you work on something for so long and you invest so much in the characters and trying to make them real and in a very particular way in your mind, your mind is able to simulate what those characters would think or do. And when you've lived so and you have to kill one of them off, like that's how it feels. It feels like they died, and it's sad. I would never be able to gain this.
Yeah, it was like interesting to restructure their fates and feeling different emotions. But overall, it's just the cool thing about it is just it spontaneously appears, like non-conceptually almost, in a kind of a flood of ideas. And these are like, and because it's fictional, I didn't have the pressure I usually have of actually being the head of such a society, and I would be different from the main protagonist. But anyway, having tortured the people with this tidbit, let's move on to something else that has been preoccupying me recently, and that's Tinder. A while back, I have planted some Tinder crops with a certain lady with whom we had a friendship. I didn't believe that I was planting crops, and I didn't want to plant them. But then, let's say when it was time for a harvest, the crops that we planted turned out to be completely different.
Oh no. What does that mean?
Yeah, I didn't want to plant my crops, but unfortunately that's what I planted. So in light of this, something activated in me, I guess, and that's just not so much from a desire to have a lady friend, but just a sense of responsibility to have one, because I'm fucking in my mid-30s, and the last time I had some sort of an engagement with a lady friend was in 2014. So I decided to hit up Tinder on account of Ryan's promotion of it, or at least his connection with it. So, Brian, would you be so kind as to read my Tinder profile?
Oh, sure. Here we go. If I had the power to appear in your dreams, I wouldn't act creepy or chase you through the woods. Maybe other guys on here, but not me. So ghost me tenderly, ladies, or don't ghost me at all. How about some awkward facts about my life? I currently stay with my parents. There's a great explanation for that. Alas, it's that I'm bipolar. Not the raging type, though. In Buddhism, and I'm Russian. I wish I could tell you I don't own an Adidas tracksuit left.
Yeah, so there was some breakup in connection, but it says I know a lot about Tibetan Buddhism. I'm Russian. I wish I could tell you I don't own Adidas tracksuit and then swipe left in capital letters. So out of 5 on a 5 pony ratings, with a tailless pony being half a star, how many ponies would you give this profile?
I would say 3 and a tailless.
Okay. Excellent. You really have mastered the pony rating, because I never heard anybody say
I had
tailless.
no idea. I mean, you described it very quickly to me, and I feel like that's
No,
not accurate.
No, I think that you're like became a pro immediately. Like Mr. Robbins could hardly like figure it out for the duration of our streams. You're like
I mean,
3
it's
and a
not that
tail.
complicated.
It
Yeah.
never even fucking occurred to me to say it this way.
I had never considered rating something in in ponies, and then considering the half as being a tailless, but whatever.
Yeah. So explain like the missing pony.
Okay. Let me say why you got
The
the
missing
ponies that
ponies.
you got.
Yeah.
So the reason why you got the ponies that you got is because, one, it's well paced. 2, it's short but sweet, shows a sense of humor. It's not that awkward. It's really not. It's very honest. It's forthright, presenting your situation, which I don't know if that occurs on Tinder. I'm not sure. I've never been on that app, so I don't know what that's like.
I don't think it
But
occurs.
I like
aside from
to
children,
consider,
aside from reporting children, which makes sense.
yes, I would think of ratings in terms of what is earned rather than what's deducted.
Mm-hmm. But something is deducted. What is missing potentially?
What is missing, right? Let's see. There is the impression that you do have a sense of humor, you're self-aware, and that you're honest. So those are all benefits, but we want to know something that you're going to bring, that's going to be brought into the relationship.
It's narcissistic as always. It's kind of all about me. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a listener, so I mean, something to that effect. Perhaps I'm a very passionate person, or let me bring the passion in your life. Do you want some excitement? I mean, we don't want to make this into it is an advertisement for yourself, but we don't want to make it sound like an ad. I would focus.
It's an indication of like exactly what you're talking about, that this has never occurred to me. Like never occurred to me to put anything like that in.
Sure. Like what are some qualities that you would bring to another person? What would you bring to the relationship?
That's an interesting question. Presumably, the only thing that I could bring is that I'm not stupid. But aside from that, I am kind of very, very lazy and unstructured. I'm
a little too much honesty up front. Just up front, it's good to know that you're honest and you have insight. We want things, but I don't know if we need an excessive amount. We need to find a middle way here. So a little dabble do you on this one. And then we move on to I really, I love think of an activity that I enjoy doing with another person. It doesn't be the long walks on the beach or the watching the sunset, or it doesn't have to be that. But something unique, perhaps, that you would enjoy doing with a person, or have enjoyed doing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, no, I mean, I think perfect sense. I think the reminder here is that women exist actually, and they have their own interests and needs, as opposed to just sort of taking all your flaws and making them kind of cute and bouncy.
There is, and also the other problem that I am seeing is that I am not sure, and just this is just based on what I've heard, but I'm not super sure that Tinder is the place to go for relationships.
I basically think that in many ways it is for
Is it?
heterosexual.
Okay.
I'll
That's
explain
perfectly.
this in a moment. I'll explain this in a moment.
You might want to mention that you're tall, because you're a
Yeah.
very tall gentleman, aren't you?
Yeah. I should mention that. That's the one thing I should mention. But I do have a picture where I'm tall.
Okay. Or what are you next to? Like, what are you next to that shows that you're so tall?
I guess I'm just in a mall, but I look tall anyway. Like if I
You're a
take a
head
picture,
above everyone else.
uh, I guess like if you're familiar with the proportions of like mall kind of things, then it's an abandoned mall,
Sure.
and I'm there alone.
Oh.
But I think if you're like familiar with the dimensions, uh,
I got you.
with the mall dimensions, I look tall. But no, it seems to never hurt at all to say that you're fucking tall. I mean, that just works. I've heard it from almost every single woman that they wouldn't date like a shorter man, and it seems like short man at all. So yeah, so basically, like getting on Tinder has been like an amazing experience for me, and I'm not even kidding. For one thing, like literally half the profiles on there are bots. They're just kind of generic models or like Instagram models that want you to get on Snapchat, where I guess it's easier to use people and beg for money. And there is no fucking way that Tinder isn't aware of this. And they facilitate this for their own Pavlovian reasons. And I think it has to do with like, you're on there, you know this is a bot, but on a Pavlovian reason way, you're like, look at this hot chick, I'm gonna get one. And you just continue swiping. You know, because sometimes it's just like one after another. So that's one thing I thought about. And then the second thing I thought about is something I brought up in my previous video, is these guys who buy like herbal Viagra on porn sites or believe that they can extend their penis with a pill. And I thought like this is like an exact parallel here to a dude who thinks that this like hot chick can find herself a boyfriend, and her biography is like, you know, I want somebody to motorboat my ass, and she has a Snapchat sort of a link, well, a nick there, and he thinks, yeah, I'm gonna try my luck with her. And like and like Tinder completely encourages this or tolerates this. I mean, that's pretty amazing, because that's like every second woman on there is that.
It's such a what a barren land.
Yeah.
It's just this. Just motorboat my ass or get the. Out.
Or like it's like I'm in Cincinnati for a few weeks and I just want to have fun, and it's just like the hottest, well, not the fucking generically hot like girl with her, you know, booty turned toward like and it's like some dude is like, whoa. You know,
I can't imagine. Why would she be in
that's the most unrealistic. But I mean, you just remember that like half, and again, I don't brag about my intelligence, but like half of the men are below 100 IQ, and like they're being had all day, every day. And these are the guys, many of whom then become like MRAs and so on, because it's like, I've been betrayed on Tinder too many times. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this
So
is getting me very down. That's the entire purpose of it. I mean, it's basically you're just a piece of meat, and you're meat with feelings, though. You know, meat has feelings.
I wonder how the same, like how this algorithm works for these like hot ladies, how White Tinder has the right to their pictures or whoever's posting it. Like it's just amazing because it's like every second one of them, and like sometimes I was swiping it at night because I have a neurotic addiction to it now, and there was literally like like 10, 15 women in a row who were named Emma, Emmy, Emily, whatever. You just swipe, and all of them are like super hot. They were
Yeah.
almost like dumped there, like some sort of new order of like toilet paper or whatever. In one kind of in one, it's just amazing. It's fucking amazing. Um,
So does it show you? I have no fluency with the app. So does it show you a picture first? Is that what it does?
well, basically, it's all based around pictures. So there are pictures, and then
Okay.
like your bio is hidden, and they just show the first paragraph, and then you have to expand it. And my bio is like the maximum you could write as far as characters. Um, so yeah, that's basically it's all picture based primarily. You have to pictures, a short bio, and like a song you can select for them, which is like a promotion for Stitcher, basically. So that's what it is.
Do you have to pay for this?
You have to. You don't have to pay, but then you have limited swipes. And so, because
Oh,
there are so many bots on there, unless you're an idiot, you're gonna swipe left, and so you're gonna run out of
yeah,
swipes. And so, yeah, I did get like unlimited swipes membership, which is like $12, which is shameful. But I'm like, I just need to swipe a lot because what the fuck? I need to play statistics, like with what I
yeah,
put in my bio in order to escape being ghosted later. I just put it up front, so naturally, like ladies aren't gonna go for that. So I need
yes.
a lot of swipes. But then there are other levels up to like $50 a month that allow you to supercharge your
Wow.
profile. So yeah, I mean it's all a big fucking amazing scheme. And that's why I
Yeah.
think that like the whole notion that Tinder is like this hookup app is just bullshit because it's just the bots. Now there are some people there who want you to like join their marriage sex or something. A few people like that, but
Mm,
aside from that, it's really like a lot of single moms who say no hookups, and they're like, I know it's Tinder, but that's not fucking what Tinder is. Like Tinder is just a bunch of
okay.
bots and a few like freaks and like mostly like
Yeah.
single moms realistically.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine.
I mean, it's
So
either that Craig ads, right?
I'm sorry.
That's it's either that or Craigslist personal ads, right?
I guess I don't know. I mean, I just kind of got to Tinder. So far, like I didn't have too many successes. There are 17 ladies currently who liked me. However, I'm sure I swiped left on all of them. I could pay more money
Mm,
to see who these ladies are, but I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be interested, probably.
yeah.
However, there
Eh,
was one kind of an exception who was highly educated. Like she went to like Dartmouth College, university lady who was not a bot. And we started talking and we were having like a normal conversation until I looked at her pictures again. And again, I apologize. I'm a superficial person and I'm entitled to nothing. And I have like shitty teeth. And so ladies have many reasons to reject me aside from my height. But I am unfortunately like superficial. So I saw something and then I thought, she's smart. We should definitely become friends. And then or just become friends. But then I decided to have a test for friendship that I knew she would fail. And then I would be free of any potential awkwardness. And would you like to guess what that test was?
What the test was?
Yeah.
Was it rating things by ponies?
Almost. I just sent her a link to this channel. I said, "Hey, I have a YouTube
Oh, okay.
channel.
That
It
totally
has a
makes sense.
yeah, it has a small audience." Um, and then I've never heard from her again, and she blocked me. But
Oh no.
that's what I was aiming for,
I'm sorry.
because it's kind of awkward to meet somebody on a dating app and then become friends. I mean, it could work out, I guess. So my feelings were a little bit hurt, but and that's my stupid life where I'm like, hey, this lady, I don't know if Dartmouth is like an Ivy League school or something, but a fancy school was interested in talking to me after reading my profile. And I'm like, yep, I'm going to try hard, like to eliminate her. And then I'm like happy when I succeeded by sending her to this channel, which is kind of like the work of my life or something.
It's difficult.
Yeah.
So let's say,
So
well, let's simulate what would happen if something, say the stars aligned, right, and you were attracted just based on the superficiality of the entire thing, and what do you do? Messaging, like you message back and forth,
yeah.
message, and then like it was meet time, right? Like
Yeah.
what would you do? What would you suggest that you do?
Well, I mean, I do have like, my whole savings is like, well, I guess a couple $1,000 right now. Let's say under whatever, under four. that's my whole savings, and I hope that my haul will not discourage anybody from being a patron. But actually, yeah, I don't know why people subscribe to my Patreon, and even though I do like the money, I sincerely, go ahead and unsubscribe. But yeah, so I could take her to a fancy date. It's like, why not? It wouldn't last,
Yeah.
but I would take her. But overall, I want to say I do feel bad about my superficiality. Like, I am a little bit like a dermatologist. Like, I look for every flaw, which is really wrong, and I don't like that aspect of myself. And I understand, but I'm always fine with being rejected for superficial reasons also. So I'm like, in addition to being a fucking loser who, kind of works as a driver with a college degree and like has no life skills, lives with his mother. In addition to that, I'm like also very picky and selective with what I look for in a lady. And so like, that's why I need fucking unlimited swipes. I just need fucking statistics to find somebody to like pity me, or like somebody who's profoundly bored who wants an unusual person. Like, there's nothing else. There's nothing else from pity and interest. And even
Well, you
then,
know
it's
what,
probably
Ivan? I think that you're interesting.
thank you. But do you want to suck my cock though? That's the question.
I mean, I'm open to new experiences, but I'm married.
Yeah. Um. All right, Brian, are you ready? So actually, I I feel bad like when you reject like a single mother. I of course sometimes I think she's hot. Anyway, no, sometimes people have nice personalities. I'm sure like single mothers of all people wouldn't want to date me for obvious reasons. It's like adopting another child. But it still feels sad about like rejecting people because of their physical appearance and so on. But I did, from flipping from like doing this shit on Tinder, and like I became neurotic about it, almost like as an anthropological experiment. I just started doing it a lot neurotically, and I still do. And like honestly, for about a week, I lost all of my libido. That's not an exaggeration. It has never happened to me before in my life. I just felt so much alienation from it, from just not being able to relate to people, with every girl seeming like either being a clone as a bot or just seemingly being a clone as a non-bot. uh, just this deep sense of alienation, especially relative to the place where I live. I did lose my libido in a way that I really never have in my adult life, except maybe from like clinical depression.
Yeah. Yeah, that's problematic when you're in the meat market, right?
Yeah.
So you don't
Okay. So,
feel like you have the drive.
okay. Yeah. Of course, like meeting women in the real world is better, but I mean, parties are the best. Um, in all of us, like these apps encourage the most superficial judgments, but I did meet ladies on there before, and then we had like awkward friendships. All right, Brian, so here are some kind of things that I have encountered a lot on Tinder. Certain types of repeated statements that ladies put into their profiles, and I would kindly ask you to like rate them on a pony scale. You know the tailless, you know the rating well,
I know
as
the
far
tail
as,
list. Yeah.
yeah, the five
Yes.
being like the great, the sort of an appealing trait, and the one, of course, being vile. Um, so here's a statement that I have encountered a lot: thick thighs save lives.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. That one's only two. That one's only two ponies.
All right, how about like dog mom?
That's the one.
That's it's even worse than thick thighs save lives.
Yeah,
Huh.
it's worse.
Um, anytime I see dog mom now, because it's like every second one, I can't help but
Hmm.
imagine a woman giving like birth to a puppy, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I'm just not into it. Like, it's definitely a thing, and it's fine, but that is repugnant to me.
okay, how about a
It's
statement?
repulsive.
uh, people just relate to animals so much in our alienated age. I mean, it really is amazing. And everybody has
No,
like this.
I totally understand. I just don't want anything.
You don't want anything what?
I don't want anything with them. I understand that that is an experience in this life and in this world now. After neoliberalism has run its course, just these atomized units, and everyone has to take to their pet to feel anything anymore. I just don't want anything to do with those people. It's fine, but I mean, it's just so sad.
Uh, uh, yeah, I
Like
mean,
I know the dog mom. You
dog
know,
mom.
like I know
That's a
that lady.
beautiful. That's really nice. It's like the dog mom is just a product of neoliberalism. I mean, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's fine, but it's not. I don't want to. I don't want to waste my time with that. You know.
And these are the types of discussions that will assure that I'm not going to get
My
laid.
problem is this: I'm having some really bad technical difficulties on my end. Probably has to do with bandwidth, but this is what I say. I need someone who is rebelling in the Camus sense of rebelling against meaninglessness. I need someone who's in the fight and in the fucking
A
fight to
fucking
win.
a hamster dad. That's who we need.
Don't do it. Oh,
Okay, so what about the statement fluent in sarcasm? I'm fluent in sarcasm.
We can only go up to 5. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say I'm gonna be and I'm gonna say 2 and a tailless.
Okay.
So two and a half.
Yeah. I mean, your ratings are they really have insight. For some reason, like this one, I mean, for some reason, like this one really gets to me. I mean, Dog Mom is the worst, but for me, it wasn't like as fancy as you put it. But uh,
Sure.
yeah, like fluent in sarcasm is like, it's just, I mean, it's by definition redundant. Like, if you were fluent in sarcasm, you wouldn't actually say that. Um, What
Right.
about what are your opinions? So this is not a saying, but just the factor, a very prevalent and seemingly near universal factor on Tinder, which are thigh tattoos. We already covered the thick thighs save lives, but what about like
Sure.
thigh tattoos?
Tattoos. The tattoos. They're very popular. You know, a lot of people have tattoos, and I'm against tattoos. In fact, I don't have any tattoos myself, but I think that they're very attractive on women, and so I would probably not be very dissuaded by a thigh tattoo. I would not elevate. I would not necessarily elevate that. Um, but I'm a believer in outside in not working. It's inside out that matters, you know? And if you really feel like there's something inside of you that you just got to go get fucking tattooed on your thigh, like that's you, you know? But if you're trying to put something on your thigh, maybe it's not one to one on the inside in the heart. It's not authentic.
Interesting. I guess I'm
Depends on what
more
the
of like
tattoo is, too.
I used to be not really attracted to tattoos. I'm like a little bit of a fascist. But now I guess I don't care as much. But I can't like the first time like I knew this hot lady who was marginally attracted to me, like very marginally. But I mean I saw she had like a thigh tattoo and at that time it was disturbing to me in 2014. But now I guess I've acclimated to it, but it's just so ubiquitous now. So I don't know. I mean, I kind of think it's strange that you would like slap a image on yourself that you wouldn't like put on your car necessarily. But I guess
Sure.
like these tattoos are getting more elaborate and nice than just like the Chinese characters you saw before. Um, I don't know. I guess I don't. I
It's
guess it's just the conformity of it that bothers me rather than it in and of itself. I guess I'm still like a fascist. I would like to have a sleeve, but only if there was like some good idea behind it and the artist would be fancy.
mhm.
Um, so I am a
To
hypocrite
be
here.
expensive.
Yeah, it would be expensive.
So
That's why
it's
I'm
also a
not gonna.
status.
If I actually made money in middle age because I have lost my youth as part of my kind of
Sure.
midlife crisis program, I would get it. But
Yeah. It would take a lot for me to get a tattoo at this point.
hmm,
Yeah.
interesting. So just this one, innocent or no, loves tacos. You know, I love tacos. But again, the point here is like over and over and over and over again. And
Mhm.
yeah, what do you think about that one?
Um, there's signaling right up front. There's going to be a body image issue there
Really?
just right away.
Hmm.
Yeah, body image issues are going to be tied to food, and like she's going to be working very hard to either keep her figure or really not care at all, and maybe just let herself go. Maybe she's looking. Maybe you could really corner the market here, because perhaps she's seeking the opportunity to free herself in tacos.
Hmm.
And so, if, say, for example, she were to pass the Ivan standard, then perhaps you could mention, hey, I noticed that you said you like tacos. To go get some tacos with me? Just keep feeding her, and just keep feeding her and feeding her until she realizes that you're the one.
Hmm. Um, I think that there is like to a taco, there is for once it's like a four-letter word, and it's kind of like a kind of a light and fun word. So it it indicates a kind of a dance through life that could be interpreted as light and um, kind of what's the word light and I was just gonna say fun. I can't think of a fancy word, but it's like tacos. But perhaps there is frivolity there. Like it's a food of non-commitment, perhaps a food of non-reflection, especially here on kind of by a bar or something. Like maybe it's as neoliberal as a cat mom, the American taco.
I mean, if we're really going to do the very deep work on interpreting the taco, we're going to have to look at the physis, the physicality, and the being of the taco. And in order
Mhm.
to break it down, we have to know what kind of taco she means. So you're going to have to ask. That's going to have to be your first question. What kind of taco? Because
Mhm.
if she means a hard shelled taco, she has all, the hardness on the outside. She's facing the world, and there's difficulty because that friction with the world has made her hard and calloused, and trying to get to the inside, to the on the inside. That's symbolic of a person who's had some difficulty. If she just wants some street tacos, just some plain old corn tortillas with some meat slapped in it, she's a very open person. She's going to be open, you know.
Excellent. Um, so the next one is a lady who claims to have a master's degree. I mean, presumably, probably has it. And then in her profile, there's just a line of shameless smileys and emojis. Just fucking
Hmm.
plants, fucking sunshine, different smiley faces with tongues sticking out, all of that stuff, right? She claims a graduate degree. Has our education system just become a fucking plunger, kind of
Mhm.
plunging different shit down the pipes? Does this reflect on her own intellectual mediocrity when that happens? Are we gonna strike at this lady?
It does depend. It depends on a couple things, but the
I'm not
I think,
talking about one smiley or like two
okay.
uh, distributed over the profile, which could be suspicious, but just a fucking string of fucking smileys.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that that's problematic. The smileys in there, one after another, is really trying to push a particular image of the person. And of course, after going the postgraduate degree, you're unable to maintain the sorrow and be open about sadness that one feels in postgraduate studies, then you're simply lying to yourself, as you're lying to us with the smileys.
Hmm.
I mean, that's, I mean, I studied hermeneutics very briefly, but this is my interpretation of this.
Hmm. Yeah.
Not promising.
Like if she first says that she's fluent in sarcasm, then maybe the smileys are justified. You
Sure,
know,
that would be
yeah,
that would be very different. Yes.
yeah. So finally, this is the big one, and this is, of course, height discrimination. Shamelessly,
Hmm.
shamelessly, a lot of these ladies proclaim that they want a dude who's over 6 feet, or he must be higher than them, even when they're like 5'8". Um,
Mhm.
I mean, kind of, and without any sort of excuses, and sometimes like, sorry, swipe left. What are your ponies on this one?
I'm gonna give this 4 ponies, four full ponies, because
You,
it's
you
honest.
approve of this?
I do approve of this as someone who's under 6 feet. I approve of this because first it's honest. First it's engaging. It's honest and it's engaging with what we all believe Tinder to be, which is a meat market. Size, you know, before you buy this, poke around a little bit. So I think this is entire the entire process with a realistic approach. That's how I would gauge this.
No,
And
I
also,
think that no, I think that there's kind of a shamelessness and a complete fucking violation of the social
okay,
justice ethos that all these people, claim to. This to me is just indicates that there is no universal morality, that there is a lot of virtue signaling, because a person has as much control of their height as they do of their biological sex or their race. And if you have a personal preference like that, then don't flaunt it. Like I said, like,
mhm,
I probably, of all the swipers on there, I'm probably like I would, I'd be surprised if I'm not in the top 5% of people who swipe left on a lady. But I don't have to like fucking flaunt it, the fact that it's like being overweight is basically an automatic no. Um like, there's a shamelessness
for
in
some people
there.
it is though. For some people it really is though, and that's them being upfront with with how shallow they are.
Um, I mean, I guess it's like, it's not so much like the fact that a person has preferences, or even the, but this is another kind of hypocrisy about it, because I have heard it more or less from every woman that I've ever talked about this, which admittedly is not a large sample due to my life, but there's so much sensitivity about female bodies and objectification and so on, that I of course agree with. People shouldn't be shamed for their bodies or whatever, unless they wear inappropriately short or tight uh, clothing. No, it's kind of, I kid, of course, but here it's just like they just flaunt it. I feel like I don't have a problem with it being a general preference, but they just kind of flaunt it, in spite of all these kind of hypersensitivities about what you can say about female bodies. I mean, I can put it crudely, but being overweight is at the very least, unless you have a strong metabolic disorder or if you're taking antipsychotics, it is much more of a choice than your height. And yet, like, nobody's addressing that, and nobody's shaming ladies over it. Like I said, I think they have a perfect right to it, but there is a kind of a blasé attitude that flies in the face of all the social justice uh, ideas.
Mhm. Well, you are tying this to the lack of universal morality. That there is no universal morality, and there really isn't.
It's not a choice to be short.
Perhaps you're right. You are completely right. However, the person is their a personal preference. Okay, and they've encountered plenty of men, I'm sure, that have added an inch. Okay, now if the standard is 6 feet, maybe she's accounting for the inch, maybe 2 inches. Okay, and maybe you wear the boots that day. I don't know. I'm not sure, but if that comes to pass, perhaps what she's actually saying is that she doesn't want someone who's below average. And we can't help the insecurity of lying about our own height or length in some cases. But in that event, we do still need to consider that they're engaging on the level of where many people are operating on that app.
But again, we're like, a lot of people have stereotype about ethnicities and they don't want to date them, which is fine. But it's just like you don't like proclaim it kind of in this way. I mean, think about being a short guy. I mean, you're just fucked, and then everybody's like throwing this in your face. To the extent that I'm lying about my height, I'm probably like downplaying it. I usually say I'm 6'3". I'm pretty sure that if I like became fully erect, I would be 6'4". At the psychiatrist's office, like the lady measured me and said I'm 6'5".
Wow.
I don't know, but I do find it gross. I mean, it's just like you have to be, I guess, Joe Pesci to get laid if you're short.
Well, there's also a cluster of personality issues that tend to be associated with shorter men.
Because of this shit. I mean, how could there not be?
I mean, well, exactly. But if you were one of those individuals and perhaps you did have some issue about your own stature, then maybe she doesn't want to deal with that shit, or maybe she had a bad experience in the past and she doesn't want to be reminded.
I mean, Lamassa pointed out, "Lol, men want skinny, tall, beautiful girls too." I want to highlight here that I guess they do. For one thing, like being a short woman isn't like some sort of I guess like in the modeling world, it's a big no-no. But for most, that aside, like a lot of shorter women are going to get way laid, frankly, if they have other assets, which is crude to talk about. But men constantly get shamed for their preferences and so-called, I mean, again, objectification happens, and of course, like men harass women more and do crimes, but just in everyday world, that are like pigs for kind of their everyday preferences. I'm not talking about some sex offenders or gropers. But whereas women can just openly state it, I don't think it's fair. I'm not an MRA. I don't have a lot of these types of concerns or anything, but on height discrimination, and it's like, why would I be fucking concerned about it when I'm in the top whatever, in the top percentiles? But I want to shout out to my short brothers. So that's that on Grindr. Like I said, it killed my sex drive for a week because I mean, between like the thick thighs that save lives and smileys and fucking fluent and sarcasm and dog mom, I can honestly tell you it really like alienated me so much from the fair sex that I it never happened to me before. Thanks to Tinder, I'm beginning to recover now, in case anybody's wondering. So I also had an event recently that's completely unrelated, but it's just the angriest I have been in my adult life. So I have been driving to Miami University for work, and there are a lot of beautiful ladies there walking around. Um, as I was driving, I stopped at a red light naturally, and it switched to green, as they tend to do. And there was a dude behind me who I'm sure was a college student with his dumb fucking dog, and he honked at me in a kind of entitled way. It sounded like to me, and it already like fucking arisen anger in me through my chakras. Especially since there were ladies around. It's not like anybody would notice something like that or care, but it's like I'm there in my uniform. This fucking little punk is in his shitty car, like fucking coming back from wherever the fuck. Um, so then we proceed to drive, and then like I make a sudden turn, and without turning on my indicator, just to piss him off. Okay. He then honks again. Now, presumably, like I have succeeded in pissing him off, so I should be content or something like happy with it when I like pulled over suddenly, where he could have like hit my bumper. Um, but I wasn't. In fact, I became completely enraged, and I just wasn't so angry ever in my life. My hands were literally shaking, and I always thought that this was some sort of a joke or an exaggeration when your hands are shaking. And my jaw was also shaking, and I was like, I'm gonna fucking kill this son of a bitch. And so I drove around the road. It was a one way, and so I drove around it, and I jumped out from the other side. Unfortunately, there was a car in between us. I'm pretty sure he saw me, and then he fucking made his escape, and the light was on. And then for about like, I don't know, like 10 minutes, I was driving around the campus, driving around, well, maybe like 5 to 10, whatever, driving around looking for him, looking for this son of a bitch. But then I didn't find him, and I went back to actually do my job. But this wouldn't be good if I caught him up, because like I have a very large knife with me, and I just was so fucking pissed about it. It's just his sense of entitlement, and it was pretty surprising and shocking to me how angry I became, because I've never been so angry in my life, and I've chased people in my cargo van before, but I somehow like where they slowed down and called the police, but I drove away at that point. Um, so anyway, yeah, I mean that happened. I wasn't like shaking then. Has anything like that happened to you?
In terms of like hyperbolic rage, not really. No, I mean, I'm not exactly like the most cool person under the collar. Like I get flustered and frustrated and angry and stuff too. But to to really go control. I mean, did you think of the knife? Or were you thinking like I have a knife? Like were you thinking that? Like did you think about how you had a knife?
Yes, but the knife has like a window breaker, and because the knife
Hmm.
is large overall, that window breaker is also large. And so what I was planning is, I mean, presumably, I mean, I have options, so I could hit him really hard in the frontal
Yeah.
lobes. But I mean, yeah, I have fantasies like that, but I just never. So I don't know what would have happened. I could have, my like timidity could have like just come out of me, and nothing would have happened. So I
Yeah.
mean, if I had to make a bet, then my basic timidity and the fact that I've never been in a fight in my adult life would have come out. But
Oh,
um,
you've never been in a fight? That is actually surprising to me.
in my adult life, well, I was so antisocial that I just didn't
Hmm.
interact with people to be in a fight. And like because I'm tall, like I think that sort of
Hmm.
one time some rednecks were like uh chasing me in the car in their Jeep, well, in their pickup truck, and trying to ram me off the road. And I got into like a parking lot, and I was ready to fight them, but they drove away. Um, I seem to have been ready to fight them, and here I also was really angry, but it never came to that intersection to really test it. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if I was timid. I did have fights when I was younger, like
Yeah.
goofy fights.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I have been approached many times by people who want to fight me, but I have a pretty cool head in stressful situations.
Is that at a strip
Um,
club?
was I don't think so. No, no. I mean, bars, yes, bars, totally. Almost every single one of them, except at Taco Bell one time. It was very strange. There was a man who was very concerned with getting potatoes. And this, I mean, not to totally make connections, but this was a shorter man. And he was in front of me, and he turned around and he started walking toward me as though like I was supposed to move out of his way or something. There was no immediate particular reason as to why he needed to walk directly toward me, but then he bumped into me and he said, "We're going." And
I'm sorry, what did he
and I just
say?
kind of he said, "Watch where you're going." Like
Oh,
he moved into my space and bumped into me. Like he didn't want to. He didn't want to the side, but like he also kind of had to like maintain his balance. And so he bumped into me, and I kind of looked down at him, and I just kind of, I don't know, I have like a smirk that I do. I guess I just kind of like, yeah, all right. And just nothing happened. Like he wanted something, and he didn't want to feel maybe like he was being an idiot, or he didn't want to feel like he was intimidated. I think he was also looking for something that he probably wasn't going to find. I'm not sure, but I find more often than not, it tends to be that type of situation where someone is looking to take out anger or something like that, and I'm pretty good at sort of like projecting a shield up. Like, no, like go somewhere else, man. Like this isn't my thing.
mhm.
Um, but I mean, as far as the rage issue, I've totally been pissed off. I mean, I've been pissed off so bad that I can't even see. Like my blood pressure just roof, and like um and then like I kind of realize how stupid it is. Like how stupid. One time working at Macy's in the night specialist, and one of my coworkers had come and re-merchandised some of my area that I was responsible for. And I felt almost as though because he merchandised incorrectly, something of a violation of my time and my energy. And I got very frustrated. I immediately got on the phone and I was like, "This fucking guy, this guy, he keeps merchandising my area. Like, Jesus Christ, I'm a fucking idiot. Like, I'm sorry, never mind. Like, it just kind of became one of the things. Um, Interestingly, another shorter man that I was trying to help find jerseys. He tried to start a fight with me at work, and that didn't happen either. That wasn't going to happen. It's weird. It's weird. It's really like I've never gotten to the point where I'm like, I'm going to fight you. I've never gotten there. I don't know. I don't know why.
I guess
I don't
like
know. It's just not.
there is a dormant desire in me to just get into one fight or just to really intimidate somebody one time so people would be afraid of me. But that's not, neither is this a healthy desire nor one that should be pursued. But uh, I don't know where it came from. And in my adult life, nobody particularly humiliated me in any significant way. But yeah, I don't know. I guess it should go away. I hope. I don't know what to say here. I've ordered another knife recently, though. So, um,
We're headed
so
down a
that was,
path here.
yeah. So the other thing is that now I have 4 medications I take to reset my sleeping cycle. I got Ambien. So Ambien is known for potentially causing sleep activities that are pretty sophisticated. One of them is having sex automatically, which I shouldn't have to worry about it, or the kinds of thing that I would do there would theoretically not be harmful. That's one of them. The other one is eating. Eating is common. Eating, I'm even too lazy to use a microwave, so even that is not a automated activity. Maybe I could eat some chips or some shit, or some other disgusting shit that lays around on my vile table. So that's not a huge issue. But unfortunately, the third one is driving. And now driving is something that I do a lot, and it very much is an automated thing with me. In fact, I like routinely drive for like an hour or more without thinking about it, and not just in a straight line on a highway. Well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe you know what I mean. Maybe not an hour straight, but stuff like that. Mostly in an hour of automation. So I did become paranoid about it, and I took my car keys and put it in a different place. Um,
Oh, like people wake up
However,
on the Ambien and then they drive. They go to drive.
well, they don't actually wake up. That's the issue. They kind of remain in like,
Oh,
yeah,
gotcha.
yeah. They can kind of remain in that state. Um, so yeah, but then I thought, I slept on Ambien for a few days, and it was pretty much. I did have some nice deep sleep, and I was able to go to sleep earlier, so that was nice. But I was like, you're hiding your keys. You're like fucking overreacting. This is like a thing that doesn't happen. But then what happened one night is that I went to the bathroom at night, which I often do because of lithium. And then, like, next to my bedroom is my mother's office, where I never go into, basically. But there is like a couch there, a small couch where I can't even stretch out because I'm so fucking tall. Um, and so what I did, and there's like a blanket there, and I just, went to sleep there. And there were some of my posters like this laying on this couch for whatever reason, and I put them on the floor. So all of this I did without any thinking about it, and I've never slept on that couch. I never fucking sat on that couch. And I was just laying there and sleeping, and then like the sun came up, and I thought, well, this is strange, and I went to my bed next door. But yeah, I mean, I did perform this strange action without really thinking about it, so I don't know what else can I fucking do. I mean, this was
Yeah.
not automated at all, and I had no conscious decision after this or even going to the restroom.
You had no recollection of it.
I don't believe I made that decision consciously at all.
Oh, okay. Wow. Um, I fucked with Ambien one time. What? Well, a friend of mine at work gave me some to try because he was like, "Oh man, you're having sleep issues. Try this." And you really shouldn't share prescriptions. That's really bad. But I was driving back from Seattle. I had taken Ambien successfully one time. I was sick. I had a few pills, and I have no prescription for it. I probably could get one, but I have no need to. And I was able to sleep after taking it while I was sick one time. And then I drove 26 hours from Seattle to the middle of Arizona. And I was exhausted, but I couldn't get to sleep. And I was like, I need to go to sleep because I was moving back to West Texas. And I really needed to sleep. I got a shitty motel room and I was just awake. And I was like, hey, you know what? I think I have an Ambien. Opened up the little pill box, took the Ambien, woke up like 3 hours later, as I typically do when I'm exhausted. Like I sleep for 3 or 4 hours and I wake up. And I felt very disconnected from my body. Went to the bathroom, couldn't really shake that strange feeling, laid back down, completely passed out. Woke up, it was nighttime at that point, and I got back on the road without issue. But it was a very strange, disconnected experience. I did not feel as though I was coordinating my movements in my body. I was functioning, and I was moving, and I was aware of what was happening, but I didn't feel connected to those motions. And much less than like a derealization. It wasn't anything like that. It was like literally like a numb body sensation.
Yeah, I mean,
Fuzziness.
people get addicted to it, but seemingly not just for sleep, and I don't really get
No.
it. I thankfully the one thing I'm not prone to is addiction, aside from sugar. Aside
Mm,
from sugar and nicotine, thankfully I a guy, sold me some Percocets, and I really enjoyed them.
mm,
But for
yeah.
some reason, I never bought them again, thankfully. So
Yeah.
that's the one blessing in my uh, brain chemistry, as we say, that I'm not prone to addiction. So I was um, I was asked a few questions uh, by viewers, by subscribers. So one was to explain Belarus, what's going on in Belarus right now. So first, we need a broad kind of history lesson. Back in the day, there was a cultural space called Rus, and this was like different, kind of like ancient Greece, but with Slavs and perhaps without the same level of intellectual achievement, but different city states that all had adopted Orthodox Christianity. For some time, the dominant player in Rus was Kiev, which is today the capital of Ukraine. But then, of course, we know where the action shifted, and under Tsar Ivan the Fourth, also known incorrectly translated as Ivan the Terrible, he started brutally unifying these city states under Moscow. And in fact, he adopted the title Tsar, which is based on Caesar in Russian, Tsar, which is an insane thing to call yourself when you're basically something like a barbarian in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, he destroyed the Tatars. He started brutally unifying the Rus, and actually Russia started expanding at an insane rate after him. I mean, with some interruptions. So then the three main components of Rus or Russia that emerged were, of course, Russia itself, that today has a population of 144 million people, or we would be called the Great Russians, Велика Руса. And then Ukrainians, which I think the population right now is 40 million, I could be wrong, who were traditionally called Malaruсы, which is Little Russians. But it wasn't meant to be an insult. It was like just in terms of like space and like population, they were called that. And then Belarus, which today I believe has a population of 10 million, which are de facto white Russians, not to be confused with white Russians who fought the Bolsheviks during the Civil War. But yeah, so basically Ukrainian, Russian, and Belarusian are all like um, less of separate languages and more of like dialects of the same language. Like if I wanted to learn one of these, it would be very easy, at least to understand them. Um, but most of Belarus today speaks Russian. They're less, let's say, anti-Russian than Ukraine today, and Ukraine was pretty pro-Russian until basically Putin invaded. But they're less anti-Russian, and their leader for the past 20 years was Edward Lukashenko, who first there was a post-Soviet, like more of a liberal president, but then like because of the economic troubles, Lukashenko came back to power with like Soviet nostalgia and leftist populism. And so as far as dictators go, post-Soviet dictators, he's not the worst. He does have a form of like welfare state socialism where the government maintains a lot of working class factories where they build like tractors and shit, which is surprising that anybody buys them, I guess mostly in Russia, but they're heavily subsidized. There was less kind of corruption that affected day-to-day people, at least not as severely as in Russia and Ukraine. He prides himself on not having oligarchs. Like the streets are clean, as they say, and the GDP is higher than Ukraine, well, on a per capita basis. But he did kill people. I mean, he's a horrible person, but he's not like there are some fucking dictators in the post-Soviet space who did nothing. So I mean, after 20 years in power, people are naturally fucking tired of him. So that's not surprising. He also doesn't have the best relations with Putin because naturally between Poland and Russia, he always played like the West against Russia and vice versa. I mean, ultimately, he's closer to Russia because they support his dictatorship, but they support his dictatorship to the tune of like billions of dollars. And they buy his stuff from Belarus because they don't want him to go toward the West. And they were always talking about having some sort of a unified structure between Belarus and Russia. And actually, during the 1990s, because of his like nationalist stances and having nostalgia for the Soviet Union, he was quite popular in Russia, and some people even wanted Belarus and Russia to join and for him to be the president of Russia. But that kind of ended now. But basically, he played Russia for billions of dollars in subsidies. If Russia withdrew subsidies, Belarus wouldn't be doing too well. And so Putin was kind of annoyed with this for some time. They would have little squabbles. And now, however, like they didn't condemn the protesters as strongly. Sometimes they even showed some sympathy toward them. So they were like kind of playing with him during his vulnerable moments. And he had to fly to Russia and like sit next to Putin like a student before a guru in a very humbled state. And he was even like taking notes to what Putin was saying. And but it's pretty clear that if a push came to shove, Russia would send in the forces in there to prevent him losing power. So basically, like, it's somewhat of a tragic situation for me because if that regime collapsed, a lot of these enterprises would likely also collapse. There would be certain decentralized corruption, and the West wouldn't fucking give subsidies to the same extent. So in some ways, I believe things could get worse. On the other hand, you're stuck with this dictator. I mean, of course, I wish he'd leave, but that's basically it. So that was kind of long, lost a lot of people. Any thoughts, Brian?
What was the thing that they were most recently? Was it the election was in the news for them? Was that what the most recent?
Yeah, there was a fraudulent election where he inflated the results.
Yeah, and the opponent was very popular. Is that right?
The opponent wasn't that popular.
Oh no, okay. I just saw the protests, so I don't
The
really know
protest
much
is
about
mostly against him. Like the opponents weren't like
it. Hmm,
super popular as far as I mean, they'd
gotcha.
rather obviously have the opponents. But yeah, I mean, he's a horrible person. He kills people. It's just a
Gotcha.
nuanced situation as far as like what happens to these countries after revolutions. Sometimes they just
Yeah.
end up with IMF loans. Um,
Yeah, I don't know much about the Russia sphere. You know, I don't know about Russian geopolitics too much, just because they took kind of had to take a back seat in comparison to the United States and China. Um,
yeah,
so yeah, I don't know very much about that, but I just
I mean,
sort of clump all of that, all of the post-Soviet countries
basically,
into a
Russian
block.
geopolitics is like connecting with different dictators and different political elites in the former Soviet Union and make sure that they don't completely drift toward the West. That's one
Hmm.
thing that they
Yeah,
do. And sometimes some countries are super important, like Ukraine, where they interfere. And then on the world stage, they do like asymmetrical warfare where they like support Assad heavily. But
of course,
yeah,
I'm
so
aware of those things.
yeah, but that's basically all they do. So the other question was, what does postmodernism mean to you? It actually really means like very little. So I guess there was modernism, which was after religions and like kings and nobility stopped playing a central part, and in some cases were overthrown and killed. There was a rise of modern ideologies with the industrial age. And then past the industrial age, there is now some sort of postmodernism. But you look around at the politics today, there's fucking nationalism everywhere. There are religious fundamentalists. I mean, there are more the secularization continues, but aside from that, like nationalism still exists and like leftist and rightist politics. So I don't really understand what's specifically postmodern about it. Like we're just more alienated because of technology and alone. But it seems like if postmodernism means that people don't believe shit, I think people still believe things. They're just more lonely. So I don't know. That's not the most sophisticated explanation of postmodernism, but it just seems like it's a fucking vague fucking term, Brian.
Postmodernism comes after the modernism era, clearly in philosophy, and I actually taught a class in postmodernism in media, in particular in the late 80s, early 90s, and what it sort of did in that vein. But postmodernism, as sort of an umbrella term, is typically interpreted as shying away from um, straightforward meaning, and is much more about deconstructing things. And it's I mean, like, I've studied it in film and things like that, but I found that those strains more often tend back toward meaning, that they actually are eliminative of meaningless things that we're concerned with, and they attempt to sort of say, okay, like, yeah, everything's totally meaningless, but what actually fucking means anything? And so for me, postmodernism sort of makes this weird turn, and it tries to get to the root of meaning rather than like eliminate meaning. Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
Well,
it's
yeah. I think that basically, like, there is an idea of meaning that really doesn't exist in the same way in like other cultures, like
yeah,
Buddhism,
yes,
that is basically theistic. So then, when theism drifts away, then instead of like putting it in these terms, which would be too banal for philosophers, they start fucking wanking around and
mhm,
kind of getting into a circle jerk over the shit. But it really has to do with that vacuum, in addition to just being having like information overload. But
mhm,
a lot of them were Marxists and they believed in shit, so I mean, they still made like politics their de facto like
Yeah, postmodern
center of
neo-Marxists,
meaning.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, the postmodern neo-Marxists. Yeah,
that doesn't mean that Marxism is postmodernism, like the
right.
Lobster would say. It just
Yeah,
means that postmodernists embraced Marxism to have like something to fucking aim at.
yeah, yeah. And then I mean, there's structuralism is caught in the mix too in the philosophy angle and post-structuralism, and then like American philosophy totally goes off in a different direction. And if you mention postmodernism in an analytic school, you will be laughed at. So
Yeah, analytic philosophy is just such a huge fucking scam.
you
Um,
think so?
I think that
I'm trained. I'm really good at it. I mean,
um,
it's just formulating arguments. That's all it is.
mm, I don't know. It's like seems like it's highly detached from the real life. Like if analytic philosophy didn't exist, what
Uh-huh.
would be the difference in the world?
There is no difference. Yeah, continental philosophy still retains at least some of the humanistic, you know, insights and views on our condition. So yeah.
All right, and the last question is, hey Ivan, what is the difference between Putin, Maduro, Kim Jong Un, Trump, and Robert Duterte? Well, Robert Duterte just, I mean, he's a populist. Overall, he has some leftist and rightist tendencies simultaneously, but like he's against Catholicism, for example. But I mostly think of him as a psychopath. I mean, he constantly talks about murdering people, and I really started to think less of the Philippines after they elected him because that's just like fucking too much of like just talking about murder, and it's just like a slasher film, but they just want to fucking take poor people who fuck up and become drug addicts and just fucking throw them into a meat grinder. I mean, that's fucked up. Um, so that's him. Trump is basically like a right wing populist. In a certain country, he'd become a dictator, and here he just like perverted political values and I don't know, perhaps contributing to a permanent like I don't know, some sort of a destruction of values that if the Republican Party is going to stick to, then the country is likely not going to be able to function to the extent that it does now. And eventually some shit's going to happen. And I mean, I always had recently this negative opinion that if these trends continue, then things are fucked. Kim Jong Un, I mean, at this point, it's like basically like a religious cult, more or less, with some like communist aesthetics primarily. So it's a very unique regime. That's why we are all fascinated by it because it just became like a. It's kind of like Shinto in Japan with the emperor as a god. So it's kind of like that with them on a white horse and shit like that. Maduro is a leftist who covers up economic failure with fucking populism. I know that maybe if I have left wing subscribers, they might not like that designation. I mean, Putin is basically Machiavellian who makes populist noises, but is actually fiscally right wing. Basically, Machiavellian oriented primarily toward foreign policy. He makes populist noises now, would highly unlikely if he ever had like an actual election starting from nothing that he could get elected this way because he's just kind of more dry. But once you're in a position of a president, you can say some shit, some populist shit, and you don't have to give some sort of a great rousing speech. So that's how I would describe him. Any comments on that, Brian?
You made a very interesting comparison there with Kim Jong Un and Shinto or worshiping the emperor, and I think that there is a commonality there with Trump and that I pay attention to what Stanley Hauerwas says, because he looks at Trump and sees a hyper religious man, and not religious in the sense of Christianity, but religious in the sense of nationalism. And I think that all of the Trump supporters and everyone living in America land, that is a functioning religion for them, and that Trump is right there next to Jesus for them, and it makes sense to them. And to me, I just see these very broad trends kind of collapsing into the kind of situation that produces Trump. And I don't think that Trump is necessarily his own evil. I think that he's a product of a system and a natural end result, and an end that might unfortunately be worsened. And I think that that's leaning more toward that type of situation with Kim Jong Un, and reverence paid toward this figure who really. I mean, there's no reason for it. It's purely religious conviction.
Well, like the central themes of fascism is like national betrayal. So there were some traitors, and then some sort of ethnic or like a threat from the outside, perhaps a demographic threat. And in the case of Trump, like the demographic threat, obviously, he talks about limiting, closing off immigration all the time. But he also talks about like betrayal more in like transactional terms, usually with stupid trade deals. So it's kind of less intense of a national betrayal than the fascists would suggest. So he's kind of like a right-wing populist. If he lived in another country, he would just continue to centralize power more and more. And he's not the most like he's not a bloodthirsty person like Duterte, but eventually somebody would get killed just from the momentum of the whole thing. So yeah, basically like a right-wing populist who's like contained in this specific society. Even if he's not the most like bloodthirsty person, I mean, if you were to centralize power more, I mean, he clearly doesn't fucking respect the judiciary branch at all.
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, that's
Right.
just the most obvious example.
Yeah. I tend to agree. Yeah.
Okay, my friends, Brian, any final thoughts, any final thrusts of wisdom or tenderness?
Everyone's out there. They're trying their best, and that's really all we can do sometimes. And I think that as the months kind of tick by here, and we await some vaccine or some return to normalcy, or something like that, we shouldn't forget about the revolution of the heart,
Yeah.
inside of each of us.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And speaking of the heart, do you are you hyper selective like myself when it comes to appearance of a lady? Like, are you the one who like has like I don't have like some narrow idea, but it always ends up like one girl out of many girls, generally speaking, unless I'm driving through Oxford, Ohio, for some reason where everybody's pretty. But
Sure.
um, what's up with you there?
Um, I think for me, it's it's not going to be like, it's not ever going to be me viewing myself as having a particular standard, but what I find unique in a person's appearance or beauty or whatever it is that is attractive, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, it was certainly that way with my wife, and
But I mean, generally speaking, like not about your wife, but just generally
sure,
speaking, like, are you hyper selective when it comes to appearance?
I can't say hyper selective, but certainly selective. Certainly selective. Yeah, I can't say hyper selective because
Okay.
I'm not
All right.
an
Well,
extremist in that regard.
what can I say? Ladies are wrong to so shamelessly exclude short gentlemen. You never. I mean, it is very
It's true.
weird.
You never know. What if he's 6'3", but he's in a wheelchair?
Yeah, that's a
I mean,
great
come on.
point. That's an excellent point. So, yeah, I want to echo what Brian has said. We need to have truly an open heart toward other people. There is no reason for any kind of a deep hatred, usually. If somebody is doing something negative, you can act forcefully without hatred. It's wrong to chase college boys on your company car with ill intent. I shouldn't have done it, even though it was hard to resist at the moment. Oh, Mahum, my friends. Be kind, be well.